My wife said, I cheated with your best friend, and, honestly, I do not feel bad. I smiled and said, perfect. His wife is outside waiting to confront both of you. She panicked instantly. I never thought we would end up like this, but I will tell you everything. My name is Emiliano Vasquez, and until recently, I believed I had a perfect life in Puebla with my wife, Simina, and our 2 children, Lourdes and Ignacio. We had that comfortable routine you build after years of marriage, you know? Family breakfasts, school homework, dinners where we would talk about our day while the children fought over the remote control. Simina had always been affectionate with me, attentive, the typical wife who asks you how your day at work was and really listens to the answer. I had my job, she took care of the house and the children, and on weekends we used to get together with my best friend from college, Benito Morales, and his wife, Dulce. Benito and I were inseparable since our student days, one of those friends who knows all your secrets and has been with you through thick and thin. I trusted him like a brother, maybe even more than my own family. But things started to change a few months ago in such a subtle way that at first I thought it was my imagination. Simina started receiving strange phone calls at odd hours, and when I would enter the room, she would hang up quickly or change the subject with a forced smile that did not reach her eyes. It was my sister, she would tell me, or it was about the children's school, but something in her voice sounded false, like when you lie about something insignificant but your conscience betrays you. She started going out more often, always with perfectly reasonable excuses: the supermarket, the hairdresser, parent-teacher meetings that lasted for hours. Why did you take so long? I would ask her when she returned, and she would get nervous, stuttering a little before answering. There was a long line at the bank, or I ran into a friend, and we started chatting. Her explanations were so detailed that they sounded rehearsed, as if she had been practicing in the car on the way home. One night, I found her checking her phone in the bathroom with the door closed, something she had never done before. When I knocked on the door to ask her if everything was okay, I heard the distinctive sound of messages being deleted. Yes, love, I am coming out now, she yelled to me, but her voice was trembling slightly. When she came out, she had that strange smile again, too bright, too quick. I started to watch her more closely, like an unwilling detective in my own home. I noticed how she dressed up differently when she went out alone, how she would put on perfume to go to the supermarket, how she would check her appearance in the hallway mirror before telling me she would be back soon. And then there was sex, or rather, the lack of it. Simina had always had a libido, but suddenly she seemed tired all the time, always with a headache or saying the children might wake up. When we did do it, her mind seemed to be somewhere else, her movements mechanical, as if she were fulfilling an obligation. But the truth hit me like a hammer last Tuesday when I decided to help her with the laundry. I was checking the pockets before putting her jeans in the washing machine, as I always do because she always forgets to take out tissues or coins when my fingers touch something that should not be there. It was a used condom wrapper, wrinkled and sticky, hidden in the back pocket of her favorite pants. I stood paralyzed holding that thing, staring at it as if it were a bomb about to explode. My first reaction was total denial. There has to be a logical explanation, I thought, but my mind was already connecting all the dots I had been ignoring. We have not used condoms for years because Simina takes birth control pills. She has always been very responsible about that. It was impossible that it was mine, impossible that there was any innocent explanation. The wrapper was irrefutable proof that my wife was sleeping with another man, being careful not to get pregnant by him, while telling me she was too tired to make love. I went straight to the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at my reflection in the mirror for what felt like an eternity. The man looking back at me seemed older, more tired, with the eyes of someone who has just lost something fundamental. You are not going to be a gutless coward, I told myself in a low voice, clenching my fists until my knuckles turned white. You are going to get proof, you are going to know the whole truth, and then you are going to decide what to do with your life. I threw the wrapper in the toilet, pulled the handle, and left the bathroom with a cold determination I had never felt before. Simina was in the kitchen preparing dinner, humming a song as if nothing had happened, as if my world had not fallen apart in the last 10 minutes. Everything okay, love? She asked without even turning to look at me, stirring something in the pan. Perfect, I replied, and my voice sounded surprisingly normal, considering I had just discovered that my marriage was a lie. What happened next left me completely stunned. It had been barely 3 days since my discovery when I heard a knock on the door on a Friday afternoon. The children were at school and Simina had gone out again with one of her perfect excuses, this time to look for a birthday gift for her cousin. I opened the door expecting the mailman or some salesman, but I came face to face with Dulce Morales, the wife of my best friend Benito. Dulce had always been a stunning woman, the kind who effortlessly turns heads, but that day there was something different about her, something cold and calculating in her eyes that immediately put me on alert. "Hello, Emiliano," she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "We need to talk." She was holding a manila folder in her hands, and her posture was tense, like someone about to drop a bomb. "Dulce, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" I asked, stepping aside to let her pass. She entered without a word, walked directly to my living room, and sat on the couch as if she owned the place. "Where is your dear wife?" she asked me with a tone dripping with sarcasm. "She went out to do some shopping." "What?" Dulce opened the folder and took out a series of photographs that she spread on the coffee table as if it were a deck of cards. My stomach clenched when I saw the images. Simina entering a cheap motel on the outskirts of Puebla. Simina passionately kissing a man whose face I could not see clearly. Simina leaving the same motel an hour later with her hair disheveled and her clothes wrinkled. "A private investigator took them last week," Dulce said in a cold, professional voice. "I hired his services when I started to suspect that Benito was being unfaithful to me." I picked up one of the photographs with trembling hands, and finally, I could see the face of my wife's lover. It was Benito, my best friend from college, my children's godfather, the man I considered a brother. "Sons of their mothers," I murmured, feeling as if I had been punched in the stomach. "I have been investigating them for months," Dulce continued, collecting the photos and putting them back in the folder. "They meet at different cheap motels, always on Tuesdays and Fridays in the afternoon. Your wife tells you she is going shopping. Benito tells me he has work meetings. Very creative, do not you think?" I sank onto the couch, feeling as if the world had turned upside down. It was one thing to suspect an infidelity. It was another thing entirely to have photographic evidence of the deception in front of your eyes. "What are you going to do?" I asked her, genuinely curious about what she wanted from me. Dulce leaned forward, her eyes shining with an intensity that I found disturbing. "I am going to give them a taste of their own rotten medicine," she said slowly, savoring every word. "And you are going to help me." "What are you talking about?" "It is simple, Emiliano. They want to play dirty. We can do it too. What do you think if we give them something real to worry about?" The implication of her words hit me like a lightning bolt. "Dulce, you cannot be serious." "I have never been more serious in my life," she replied, standing up and walking to where I was sitting. "Look, we can go the traditional route. Expensive divorces, lawyers, division of assets, custody of the children, or we can make them truly pay for what they have done to us." There was something hypnotic in the way she spoke, like a snake convincing you that its venom is medicine. "This is wrong, Dulce. We are better than them." "Really?" she asked, laughing bitterly. "Better than two people who have been lying to our faces for months? Better than your best friend who is sleeping with your wife in sleazy motels?" Her words stabbed my wounded pride like sharp daggers. The rage I had been suppressing since Tuesday began to boil in my chest, hot and poisonous. "Think about it, Emiliano," Dulce continued, moving closer until she was standing in front of me. "Just once. Just so they know what it feels like to be betrayed by the people you trust the most." My moral defenses were crumbling under the weight of betrayal and humiliation. "Just once," I repeated, almost without realizing I was considering her proposal. "Just once," she confirmed, and before I could process what was happening, she sat on my lap and kissed me. It was not a sweet or romantic kiss. It was furious, full of rage and a desire for revenge. And I responded with the same intensity, channeling all my anger towards Simina and Benito into that moment of madness. We ended up on my living room couch, in the same place where Simina and I used to watch movies with the children on Sundays. It was raw sex, without love, fueled purely by the need to get back at someone who understood exactly what we were feeling. When we finished, we lay there breathing heavily, processing what had just happened. "This is just the beginning," Dulce whispered in my ear as she adjusted her clothes. "I'm going to teach you how to get all the evidence you need. We are going to set a trap for them that they will never forget. And so began the darkest part of my life. The moment I decided that being the betrayed husband was no longer enough for me. It was not easy to get to this point, but I need to get it all out. What started as revenge turned into something much more complicated and dangerous than I ever imagined. Dulce and I started seeing each other regularly, always when our respective spouses were busy with their own deceptions. She taught me things I never thought I would have to learn, like tapping phones, how to install tracking apps without them noticing, how to follow someone without being detected. If we are going to do this, we are going to do it right, she would tell me while showing me how to use a tiny recorder she had bought online. She was incredibly efficient at these things, as if she had been planning this for years. Our encounters were intense and charged with a toxic electricity that came from knowing we were doing something forbidden, something that would tear apart the people who had hurt us the most. Dulce would arrive at my house always perfectly dressed, with dresses that accentuated every curve of her body, and I would wait for her with a mixture of anticipation and guilt that was eating me up inside. "How does it feel to be the other man?" she asked me one afternoon while we were reviewing the recordings we had obtained from Simina and Benito's phone conversations. "I feel like I am finally taking control of my life," I replied, although inside I knew it was a lie. I felt like I was losing pieces of my soul with each passing day, but the adrenaline of revenge was addictive, and Dulce knew exactly how to keep me hooked. However, everything changed when Simina came home crying one Thursday night. I was watching television, feigning normalcy as I had learned to do so well, when she sat next to me on the couch with her eyes red and swollen. "Emiliano, I need to tell you something," she told me with a broken voice. I had an affair. My heart raced, but I kept my face neutral. "An affair," I repeated as if the word were completely new to me. "Yes, with someone from work. But I ended it. I swear on our children's lives. It was a terrible mistake, the biggest one of my life. Please, forgive me." She was acting so convincingly that I almost believed her crocodile tears. "Who is it?" I asked her directly. "That does not matter now," she replied, avoiding my gaze. "The important thing is that it is over, and I want to save our marriage." Rage boiled in me like lava in my veins. Not even in her confession was she able to be completely honest with me. She did not mention it was my best friend. She did not tell me how long they had been doing it. She did not give me the details I needed to process the full betrayal. "I need time to think," I told her coldly, getting up from the couch. "You cannot expect me to forgive you just like that after what you have done to me." Simina continued to cry and beg for hours, but I was not really there anymore. My mind was with Dulce, planning our next move. But the next day, when Dulce arrived at my house, I immediately knew something was terribly wrong. Her makeup was smudged, she had a purplish bruise on her left cheek, and she walked as if her whole body ached. "My God, what happened to you?" I asked, rushing towards her. "Benito," she replied with a broken voice, falling into my arms. "He suspects me. Last night he hit me when I came home late. He yelled at me asking if I had a lover, that I smelled different, that I was acting strange." I held her as she sobbed against my chest, feeling a mixture of guilt and protectiveness that completely confused me. "Dulce, this is getting out of control. Maybe we should stop before someone gets really hurt." She pulled away from me abruptly, her eyes shining in a way that scared me. "No," she said with a fierce determination. "We are not going to stop, especially after what he did to me." "What else happened?" I asked, although a part of me did not want to know. "I was pregnant, Emiliano," she whispered, and her words hit me like a hammer, 6 weeks along. And when Benito hit me in the stomach, her voice broke completely. I lost it. I lost our baby because of that animal. I stood paralyzed, processing what she had just told me. A baby. Our baby. A life I would never know because of Benito's violence. "Are you sure it was mine?" I asked, hating myself for having to ask that question. "Of course it was yours," she yelled at me with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Benito and I have not. We have not been together that way in months. You are the only one who has been with me." I hugged her again, feeling as if the world were collapsing around us. It was no longer just about revenge or making our unfaithful spouses pay. Now there was a real loss, a genuine pain that went beyond the power games and manipulation. "We are going to destroy them," Dulce whispered in my ear, and her voice had a quality that gave me goosebumps. They are going to pay for every tear, for every lie, for every life they ruined. I promise you, Emiliano. They are going to suffer as we have suffered. At that moment, I realized that Dulce was no longer the calculating and seductive woman from before. She had transformed into something more dangerous, something driven by a pain so deep that it could justify anything. And I, lost in my own anger and pain, followed her into that abyss without realizing there was no turning back. I never imagined I would be telling this, but here is the end of my story. The following Tuesday, Dulce arrived at my house with a determination that immediately made me nervous. She was carrying a large bag, and her eyes had that empty look I had seen in people who have nothing left to lose. Today is the day, she announced without even greeting me. I know exactly where they are going to be this afternoon. The San Rafael Motel, room 23. We are going to end this once and for all. Something in her tone made me hesitate for the first time in weeks. Dulce, maybe we should think this through. We can use all the evidence we have gathered for the divorces. We do not need to confront them directly. She looked at me as if I had said the stupidest thing in the world. Divorces? Do you really think that after everything they have done to me, after Benito killed our baby, I am going to settle for a civilized divorce? She opened her bag, and my blood ran cold when I saw what was inside. Dulce, no, I said immediately, recognizing the unmistakable shape of a gun. It is just in case things get ugly, she replied with a calmness that terrified me. I am not going to use it unless it is absolutely necessary. I knew I should have left at that moment. I should have called the police or found some way to stop her. But the part of me that was still consumed by rage and the desire for revenge was stronger than my common sense. At 3 p.m, we were parked across from the San Rafael Motel, waiting for our respective unfaithful spouses to arrive. There they are, Dulce whispered when we saw Benito's car entering the parking lot. Simina got out of the passenger seat, laughing at something he had said, and the image of my wife, being happy with my best friend, filled me with a rage so intense that my vision blurred. We followed him to room 23 and waited exactly 15 minutes before acting. Ready for the show? Dulce asked me, pulling out a master key she had gotten from who knows where. She kicked the door open, and we stormed in like a hurricane. The scene we found was exactly what I expected, but it still broke my heart. Simina and Benito in bed, partially dressed, looking at each other in absolute horror when they saw us appear. Surprise! Dulce shouted with a maniacal smile. I hope you are having fun because the fun is over. Benito tried to cover himself and stammer an explanation, but Dulce did not give him a chance. Shut up, you wretch, she snapped, pulling the gun from her bag. You are going to listen to everything I have to say. Simina immediately became hysterical. Emiliano, please, can we fix this? I did not know that you guys, but she could not finish the sentence. What about us? I asked her with an icy voice. That we can also play dirty? That we also know what betrayal is. The situation became completely surreal when Dulce started yelling at Benito about the baby they had lost because of his beatings. You killed my son, you bastard. Our son, she screamed at him while pointing the gun directly at his chest. Benito denied everything, swearing he had never laid a hand on her, but his words only infuriated Dulce more. In the midst of the chaos, Simina dropped the bomb that no one expected. I am pregnant, she cried out between sobs. I am 2 months pregnant, and I do not know if it is yours, Emiliano, or Benito's. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Dulce lowered the gun for a moment, processing this new information. 2 months, I repeated slowly, doing mental calculations that made me feel like I was drowning. That is right, Simina confirmed, crying uncontrollably. That is why I could not tell you the whole truth. I did not know how to explain to you that maybe the baby is not yours. Dulce went crazy. Get on your knees, she shouted at them, aiming the gun again. Both of you, get on your knees right now. Benito and Simina obeyed immediately, trembling with fear as Dulce kept them under the gun's sight. This is for every lie you told me, she told them, circling them like a predator. This is for every night I spent wondering why my marriage was falling apart while you were laughing at me behind my back. I knew I had to do something before the situation escalated beyond the point of no return. Dulce, you have had your moment. We did what we wanted. We showed them that we are not helpless victims. Now let us go before you do something you will regret for the rest of your life. She looked at me with eyes full of tears and madness, and, for a moment, I thought she was going to shoot me too. Get out, she finally told Benito and Simina. All of you, get out before I change my mind. We ran to the parking lot as if the devil himself were chasing us. But the adrenaline and rage accumulated over months finally exploded when Benito and I stood face to face next to the cars. You are a son of a bitch, I yelled at him, and, before he could respond, I landed a punch on his face that sent him to the ground. He got up, spitting blood, and hit me back. And that is when the most brutal fight of my life began. We traded blows until we were both bleeding and could barely stand, unloading years of betrayed friendship in every punch. Simina was screaming for us to stop, but neither of us was listening. It was only when we realized that Dulce was still inside the room with the gun that we stopped fighting. We have to call the police, Benito said, wiping the blood from his nose. She is completely crazy. She could hurt herself. For the first time in months, we agreed on something. When the officers arrived, they found Dulce sitting on the floor of the room, hugging the gun and muttering incoherent things about dead babies and ruined marriages. They took her away in a psychiatric ambulance while we gave our statements, trying to explain how we had reached that point of total madness. Now, 3 weeks later, Dulce is hospitalized under psychiatric evaluation. Simina and I are in the process of divorcing. And Benito, well, Benito is no longer my friend. We will probably never know if the baby Simina is expecting is mine or his, but honestly, I do not care anymore. The only thing I know is that we all paid too high a price for our mistakes, and that revenge, as satisfying as it may seem at the moment, always ends up destroying everyone involved.